Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GBNews.
Hi, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moraki.
And we're hosting a show right here on GB News, 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday. Call to the point.
We're going to be talking about all the big issues that matter to you at home in Britain.
Absolutely, whether it's holding politicians to account, discussing what's taking place in the Channel, banging on about law and order, we're not afraid to do the absolute lot of it.
Yes, and if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we'll be saying it.
Make sure you're here 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday right here on GB News for To The Point.
Coming up in 2 minutes' time, one of the most respected and high-profile journalists in the country, Tim Stanley. He's written an amazing book about tradition and why we have lost it and its true value. But first, here are the news headlines with Karen Roberts.
Thank you, Mark. Here are the latest headlines. Boris Johnson will deliver a tough message on climate change at the G20 summit in Rome. The Prime Minister will say that countries causing the most global warming must be held accountable. The summit comes ahead of the COP26 Global Climate Conference in Glasgow, which starts on Monday. He'll urge leaders to follow through on their commitments to cut carbon emissions.
One thing we've got to achieve is to ensure that we keep alive the prospect of restricting the growth in the temperature of our planet to 1.5 degrees by the end of the century. That's what it's all about. If we can do that, then we stop the prospect of so much desertification. We stop the prospect of the huge geopolitical consequences of climate change.
Meanwhile, Boris Johnson has said French threats over fishing rights are unjustified and incompatible with the post-Brexit trade agreement. France is threatening to block British boats from its ports and tighten checks on vessels if the dispute isn't resolved by Tuesday. The Prime Minister is due to hold a short meeting with the French President Emmanuel Macron tomorrow. The Brexit Minister, Lord Frost, says the UK government is now actively considering launching dispute settlement proceedings. South Central Ambulance Service has declared a critical incident tonight due to extreme pressures across its services. In a statement posted on its social media page, the service said their staff are working extremely hard to respond to calls, but the volume is overwhelming. The service, which covers Berkshire, Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire and Hampshire, is urging people to use it wisely. The climate activist Greta Thunberg has arrived in Glasgow ahead of the COP26 summit. The 18-year-old from Sweden was escorted by police and activists as crowds mobbed around her outside Queen Street station. Ms Thunberg travelled to Scotland after taking part in a demonstration outside the Standard Chartered Bank in London. It's taken the world by storm in recent weeks, and now that Halloween has arrived in South Korea, it seems the majority ruled in favour of Squid Game costumes. Fans took to the streets of Seoul dressed as their favourite characters from Netflix's dystopian show. Earlier this month, Squid Game became the streaming giant's biggest ever series launch and has been watched by 142 million households. You are right up to date now. Back to Tonight Live with Mark.
Lots to come. I'm very excited because the emails are pouring in. mark@gbnews.uk. Now it's time for the big question, and I'm delighted to welcome one of the most experienced and respected journalists in the country. He is the star columnist at the Daily Telegraph, as well as one of their opinion leader writers. A grammar school boy from Kent, he attended Trinity College, Cambridge, where he studied modern history. He's also a master of philosophy and a keen student of US politics. given that he writes from a small c conservative religious point of view, it will surprise some that Tim joined the Labour Party at the age of 15 and was chair of the Cambridge University Labour Club. He even stood as the Labour candidate for his home constituency of Sevenoaks at the 2005 general election. However, in 2017, he is reported to have ditched Labour and voted Conservative for the first time. So he's been on quite the journey. Tim is a man of faith, raised as a Baptist, and via the Anglican Church, he ultimately converted to Catholicism at the age of 23. Tim was a strong supporter for the campaign to leave the EU, and his latest book, which is winning plaudits across the board, is all about tradition. The central argument of the book is that we can only face the future with hope if we have a proper sense of tradition, political, social and religious. We ignore the past, he writes, at our peril. The problem, he argues, is that the Western tradition is anti-tradition, that we have a habit of discarding old ways and old knowledge, leaving us uncertain how to act or even of who we really are. Whatever happened to tradition, history, belonging and the future to the West is out now. I read that very badly. Let's do it again. Luckily, we're not live. Whatever happened to tradition, history, belonging and the future of the West. And Tim Stanley joins me now. Hi, Tim.
Hello.
I got the name of your book right eventually.
You did. And you know, I'm going to have to get that Wikipedia page taken down. Because every time I'm introduced, people mention the fact that I once ran for the Labour Party, and it's like you're going through my old marriages or something.
Yes, I know. Yeah, you'll never live it down.
I won't. And I came third, by the way.
You've got to use that showbiz excuse. I was young and I needed the money.
Yeah, I never inhaled.
I've been saying that for years. Look, it's great to have you in the studio. We'll start with an easy one. What is tradition?
Oh gosh, well, tradition very simply means handing something down. So in that sense, it could be absolutely anything. It could be the Sunday roast, it could be going to football matches with your dad and things like that. But of course, we don't just mean that. Real tradition, when you get into it, has durability and depth. And if you want a guide to what is a tradition, to what a tradition does, is it does three things. One, it plugs you into a community so that it's not all just about me, it's about my place within a group of people. Secondly, it gives you social knowledge, that is a language to describe what you're doing so that you can articulate things with others. And third, and most intriguingly, tradition gives you a relationship to history. It roots you in the past. So it's being compared to a slender handrail. Tradition is not against change. Change is unstoppable. And in fact, embracing change can be part of a tradition. But what the handrail does is it means that as we're progressing through that journey of life, we can hold on to it and not lose a sense of ourselves.
Well, you know the idea that a cliche is a cliche because it's true. We've all heard that. So is tradition long-standing because it works? Do these rituals, you know, is it simply a case that they're sort of they've survived and stood the test of time?
There's an argument for saying the tradition is very Darwinian, that those which are still around are around because they've been tested.
Because the tradition of chopping a big toe off would have come and gone very quickly.
Well, they've been tested and they've survived because they've served human needs. Now, some surprising ones have survived, such as monarchy. Right, monarchy makes no sense in the modern world. We are egalitarian and we're democratic, and we as individuals believe there should be no glass ceiling. And yet in our society, the most important position of all, the head of the state, there's an enormous glass ceiling that none of us can breach. So how has this thing called the monarchy survived? Well, it's survived partly because it has proved to be useful, whereas other countries tried republics and they very often descended into anarchy or dictatorships. Somehow our constitutional monarchy has actually managed to work very well hand in glove with democracy. But also it's survived because it has changed. And although if Elizabeth I went forward in time and met Elizabeth II, they would recognise each other as monarchs, they're also very different set up, very different system.
And a theme outlined in the book is that tradition is inherently optimistic.
Yeah, I think so. It has to be, because it's forward-looking. Again, a misunderstanding about tradition is the idea that it's just obsessed with the past. It is, because it is passing on. So it's about taking from the past, curating in the present, looking after something, but in order that it can be held on and handed on. And you'd only do that if you had faith in the future. If you were nihilistic you wouldn't bother. And unfortunately, some traditions can descend into a kind of pessimism and nihilism where they say the past was the best, today, it's all gone to the dogs, so I'm just going to look after this thing for a little while I've got it, but I don't anticipate it will survive. Well, that is the death of a tradition.
Yeah.
And traditionalists who behave like that let themselves down.
And that's the misunderstanding of a tradition. Now, you are a man of faith, a Roman Catholic, so are tradition and religion inextricably linked? And can you have tradition without religion?
There are loads of traditions which don't have to have anything to do with religion. I mean, like the military has a strong tradition, the family has a strong tradition. But in the book, I do keep coming back to religion because it's a sort of a template. It is the perfect tradition, partly because it adds to the mix the concept of transcendence, that you're not just thinking back and looking forward, but you're also looking up. And that's what great traditions tend to do. They actually take us out of space and time and make us think about something above ourselves, beyond ourselves, almost or beyond our understanding. And that's what faith does.
And in a broader sense, isn't that how we have prevailed as a species? By learning from previous generations. The Homo sapiens was able to teach the next generation what he or she had learned.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then that's mirrored by tradition, I would have thought.
Absolutely. And in the 18th century, you get the explosion of the scientific method and the idea that in the same way that physical principles should be tested in the laboratory, ideas can be tested through reason and debate. And what conservative philosophers bring to that mix is they say, well, history, which everyone seems so keen to get rid of nowadays, history is a laboratory. That's where everything's been tried before. So look at that, study that.
If you discontinue certain books from the library or tear down statues, then you're essentially removing that data. You're cancelling it out.
Yeah, and it might be bad stuff, but you need to read the bad stuff to understand. You need to ultimately look at Mein Kampf to understand.
Mein Kampf, I was going to say, the most dreadful tome.
Right,
However, we need to have it and we need to understand it.
To understand where it's come from so that you don't repeat its mistakes. But my goodness, if you had never experienced walking across a busy street, say, to use a bad analogy, you'd never walked across a busy street before, if you denied a child that knowledge, if you never walked them across holding their hand to make sure they can navigate it, then the one day as an adult where they choose to cross the street, they'll get hit by a bus. Yeah. And it's the same with the laboratory of history. You need to expose yourself to both good and bad. And by doing that, you see the narratives of progress. You see the conflicts in history and how people fought to make things better. Again, deny yourself that knowledge, deny yourself images or the writings of bad people, and you lose the knowledge of how to beat them.
Has the concept of tradition been weaponised within politics and perhaps characterised as an almost right-wing thing, or a Tory thing even?
Oh yes, tragically, very tragically, because if you went back to the beginnings of the Labour Party, which in this country genuinely was more Methodism than Marx, was very concerned with faith, with the traditions of the working class.
The family structure.
The family structure, and parts of it were teetotalers, very religious, and many parts took their inspiration as much from Das Kapital, they took it from the medieval era, from Christian teaching, from Romanticism. And it's very sad that that's been lost. And as a result, the impression is given that the right has a monopoly over tradition, which is not just bad because it can give tradition a bad name, it does become politicised, but it's also misleading because it means the left loses its own sense of tradition, which is one reason I believe why the left is no longer competitive, because it doesn't speak to that one group in society to whom tradition perhaps matters more than anyone else historically, the working class.
Well, yes, and Labour's ongoing love-hate relationship with the Union flag.
Yeah. The working class, very often, this is going to sound horrifically patronising, but the working class tends to need tradition because when there is sharp economic change, they suffer the most first. It is their accrued privileges and rights which are usually undone.
And I think we're already seeing it again post-pandemic, or at the tail end of the pandemic, with some of the COVID measures, even concerns that Rishi Sunak's budget hits the poorest.
Right, absolutely, yeah. So it makes sense that the poorest people in society actually need those rights and privileges that have been accrued over time and in which they take psychological comfort. And this was the great discovery of the 19th century of the then Tory party under Benjamin Disraeli, that actually there was a natural cultural affinity between British tradition and the traditions of the aristocracy and the newly enfranchised working class. And that was the basis for a very successful electoral alliance, and Boris is trying to rebuild it.
tradition needs a makeover, and I think your book is exactly what's required, because it gets a bad press, doesn't it? The word tradition, it just makes you sound fusty if you say it. You should be wearing a tweed suit. You should be middle-aged.
And there's also an assumption that it's placed on your back like a knapsack full of stones. That you inherit it from birth, you didn't choose it, and it weighs you down. But actually, paradoxically, one of the joys of living in a liberal cosmopolitan society is we're free to choose our traditions.
Yeah.
I'm a convert to the Roman Catholic Church. I've chosen to belong to a tradition there.
Yeah.
And so there is
You've joined a tradition. So they are often, and at their best, an open entity.
Yes, but at the same time, they have to have boundaries. They have to have clear...
For example, if you moved to rural France, you'd find yourself having long lunches. If you were in Spain, you'd be having, you know... I mean, I think I can find some more profound examples than that.
Yeah.
But it's a nice way to assimilate, to adopt traditions.
Although you might take a long time to do it, and also you have to defer to local custom. If you turned up and just insisted upon eating British food and drinking British beer and only speaking English, you'd find you wouldn't fit in.
Tim, speak for yourself. I mean, I'm trying to enjoy my holidays. But I hear what you're saying.
So traditions do have boundaries, and you have to negotiate your way through them. I've had to do that when joining a church. There's loads of things I've had to learn and adjustments I've had to make to my character and behaviour.
And not always a comfortable transition.
No, not by any means, no. And there's sometimes an element of suspicion. Why do you want to be part of this? What is it you think you're bringing to it? When traditions have those very fixed boundaries, they can be exclusive. And that's one entirely legitimate reason why people are scepticism of tradition, because it can very easily fossilise and it can become exclusive. And that, again, is very much against the spirit of modern society.
Yes. Now, some commentators would have you believe that Britain is a horribly divided, incredibly racist country, just consumed with toxic sentiment. But I think you all agree. I mean, you're a historian, but also a very well-read journalist and a keen observer of this country in your weekly columns. The bottom line is that Britain, you know, far from perfect, but one of the most integrated societies in the world, surely. Yeah. And isn't part of the success of that so many millions, people watching this show of all backgrounds, do sort of assimilate into British traditions in their own way, on their own terms. But isn't that part of the success of the British story? Yeah. How many people adopt British traditions? Like you said, not a sack of stones, but voluntarily.
I think that's very true. I mean, how many countries in Europe do not have sentiment? And how many do not have divisions? The idea that this place is unique in all of that and that's been proven by Brexit is nonsense. But also there is something extraordinary about British traditions in that, at the one hand, they are organic and rooted. They emerge from history. They're not invented overnight. But on the other hand, there is something quite democratic about them. And they are able to assimilate, to integrate people into them and to make people feel part of them. Now, I suspect... this is highly controversial, but I'm not the only one who thinks this. It's partly a legacy of empire. That we're not talking here necessarily about English traditions, but we're talking about the traditions that emerged post-Union and out of the British Empire, which was, after all, multicultural. And it had to find some way of appealing to and working within the context of a multicultural empire. Look, there is a legacy of racism and division and inequality. I get all of that. That's absolutely part of the mix. But the irony is that some of what some commentators hate about Britishness, because they say Britain is just a legacy of empire, well, they're right. But that might be one of the things that actually makes Britain work. Yeah. Because we were a multicultural society for a lot longer and in a slightly more positive way than some European countries were.
Completely, and I believe that continues to this day. But as you said, there's work to be done and the country is far from perfect. But there is a sense of Britishness that I think is shared, you know, almost universally. And that's why I love this country. But there you go. When I celebrate Britain, I celebrate its diversity. The diversity is what Britain is.
Oh, the union.
It's not an optional extra.
We are a union of at least 4 nations.
Yeah.
And several other little ones as well, which don't necessarily have administrations, like Cornwall. And definitely, we are a multicultural union.
Don't get them started.
Oh, no, they write letters.
I mean,
listen, bring them in on
this. You've got Brexit done, so let's not run before we can walk. I mean, it's really interesting. I just mentioned Brexit there. So were Brexit and the election of Donald Trump, and of course he may come back in 2024, but were Brexit and Trump the rejection of tradition or the embracing of it?
Well, some Conservatives actually felt it was a rejection of tradition because it was a rejection of expert authority, it was a rejection of what the Conservative Party wanted to do.
And you're an expert on American politics, and many people think that Trump
Many Republicans.
that essentially that he was the anti-Republican candidate
Yes.
within the Republican Party.
Yeah, but those people had very short historical memory. Donald Trump was not Reaganite, but he was a return to 1930s-style republicanism, which was isolationist and anti-immigration. So I'd argue that Brexit and Trump are actually the return to slightly older themes within conservatism. And the more recent orders were quite temporary, and they should have realised that they needed to adjust their arguments.
Yeah.
But in both cases, what is it people wanted? To take back control. The implication is control had been lost.
Yeah.
They want to bring it back. They want to make America great again. The implication is it was great, it's not anymore. Let's go back. So both movements, I know they were also motivated by straightforward policy choices in the EU or out of it, but they were also, I think, a vote of no confidence in the status quo. And that's what nostalgia is. It's a vote of no confidence in the status quo. And you can be appalled and shocked by that, or you can say, well, what's gone so wrong that people would want to turn the clock back even after decades of progress? Clearly, people are not happy with where we are.
As this conversation makes clear, tradition is a unifying force in any society. It brings people together. That's why it works.
It can be. It
can be.
hopefully would be, but it's not always, because, my goodness, there are societies which have been torn apart by their traditions. I mean,
Yeah, and you could describe the Taliban, of course, as traditional.
I make a long, complicated argument as I try and wriggle out of that one. But hey, look at the Balkans in the 1990s. There you have conflicting traditions unleashed by the death of communism. It's not all positive. I'm saying that there is a potential utility to tradition, but I'm not denying the negativity as well.
Yeah, for sure. Look, it's been a fascinating conversation. You are, of course, one of the leader writers at The Telegraph, brilliant newspaper, and of course columnist, and the book is out. Give the details very shortly. Connor's got the information on that. I would urge everybody to go out and buy a copy. I've read the first 2 chapters, and it's a cracking read. But can I ask you about Boris?
Yes.
Do you rate Boris? Has he got the chops to lead Britain out of this pandemic, out of the biggest economic crisis in decades? Do you rate Boris?
Yes, I do. And I'm not sure that any leader is better in the world today on any particular ideological stamp. I think these problems are beyond philosophy. Character and experience, of course, matter, but I suspect that any leader of left or right or of almost any point in history would have done pretty much the same things that Boris Johnson has done.
He's a dynamic figure and he's good at winning elections.
Yes.
But, you know, many people think that he's lazy, that he's sexually incontinent, and that he's a dancer, and that he's dishonest. I mean, you've
described some of our best prime ministers. You've described Lloyd George.
Well, that's it. I mean, maybe we don't need the Archbishop of Canterbury to run the country. No. But I mean, does he have, you know, does he have the credibility? I mean, is he fastidious? Does he have the patience for the job? I mean, if you compare him to someone like Thatcher, he's not fit to, you know, whatever she'd be doing, polish her high heels.
We should be polishing them herself.
I mean, this is not meant to be...
And that's part of her problem. Not all of us not all Conservatives like Margaret Thatcher. Some of us think there was a degree of micromanagement there that was perhaps unhealthy.
Well, it's certainly unravelled
a degree of ideological obsession and dogmatism that was perhaps unhealthy. I think Boris belongs to an older tradition of conservatism, which is pragmatic and adjust to the circumstance.
Well, that's encouraging because I want Boris to succeed.
Yeah.
And I've given him credit on this programme for things like Freedom Day, the 19th of July.
Yeah.
Because there was considerable pressure from Sage and from the opposition not to lift restrictions. He lifted them. Cases fell.
Yes.
And that took political courage.
Yes.
So do you think we'll see more of that courage going into Christmas? Because there will be those siren voices for Plan B, Plan C.
Yeah, I think we will, and I agree with you on that point. By the way, I also saw your analysis of the budget, and you yourself acknowledge that there's little else one can do at this stage.
Yes,
and
correct.
Pragmatism is not such a bad thing. Yes, I think he does have an instinct for liberty, but he's also trying to deal with problems that the entire world is dealing with. He's just trying to deal with them in a unique Boris Tory-esque way. So you take the environment as the other big one. Boris's vision is let's go green, but in a way that unleashes the private sector, and after some pain, in a few years' time, everyone becomes richer because we have cheap and abundant green technology. I don't know if we'll really get there. I'm not quite sure what the plan is. I'm not sure it's really affordable. But what you get with Boris is you get an instinct towards freedom. It might not be as much as Margaret Thatcher, but it's more than you'd get under Keir Starmer.
It most certainly is. You took the words out of my mouth. I guess climate is the next Brexit for Boris. That's his grand projet, and maybe his last great grand projet in power.
And he knows he has to take people with him, and he understands that much of the base is against this because he spent years on my newspaper writing the sort of articles that he'd be writing right now if he were a columnist and not a prime minister about the green stuff. But he genuinely believes in it now, and he wants to take the country with him.
Tim, the book is a corker, and you're by some distance the best dressed guest I've had in this studio. Whatever happened to tradition? It's out now. Everyone loves it, which is unusual in the media. History, belonging, and the future of the West. Cracking read, and I look forward to Tim returning to tell us about his next tome, which I'm sure he's halfway through, given the workaholic that he is. Well, lots to come. In the media buzz, is the NHS irretrievably broken? We'll discuss that. But next, in Frequently Asked Questions, here we go. We're eclectic, aren't we? We're going to speak to the pumpkin freak, Jamie Jones. That's right. He will teach you how to make a face out of a pumpkin without chopping off your right hand. See you in 2.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for Political Correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is the Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
Hi, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Monarchy.
And we're hosting a show right here on GB News, 9:30am till 12pm, every single weekday. Call to the point.
We're going to be talking about all the big issues that matter to you at home in Britain.
Absolutely, whether it's holding politicians to account, discussing what's taking place in the Channel, banging on about law and order, we're not afraid to do the absolute lot of it.
Yes, and if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we'll be saying it.
Make sure you're here 9:30am till 12pm, every single weekday, right here on GB News, for To The Point.
You are an eagle-eyed bunch, because I talked about making a face in a pumpkin without chopping off your left hand. And Chrissy very wisely pointed out, the right hand, left hand. I don't know my right hand from my left hand. I need to do what Jimmy Cricket used to do and have an R written on there and a left written on there, as he did on his boots. Anyway, lots to come. Really excited about the rest of the show. Steph and Dom from Gogglebox are part of our panel tonight, as well as the brilliant journalist and author of A State of Fear, Laura Dodsworth. So you wait till they sink their teeth into the big stories of the day. And they're quietly being refreshed in the green room as we speak. And I would expect nothing less for Steph and Dom. It's time now for FAQs, Frequently Asked Questions, in which we take a deep dive into a specific topic in or around the news. With Halloween just around the corner, who hasn't almost lost their hand trying to carve out a face in a pumpkin? Left hand, right hand. Well, it's quite a skill. So who better to speak to than a professional pumpkin carver? The so-called pumpkin freak joins us now. It's the one, the only, Jamie Jones.
How's it going? You okay?
Listen, I'm very well. And you are not an artisan. You're an artist.
Well, yeah, I'd say pumpkin carver rather than artist, to be honest with you. So,
well, look, when did you become interested in carving pumpkins, Jamie?
So it was about 10 years ago. We had a Halloween party. We got some pumpkins in. I thought it'd be a good idea to just carve some on the evening. And a few hours had lapsed, and I realised I'd just been sat there carving and not really talking to anyone really. And then each year it just sort of progressed, and I got better and better. Started carving more and more pumpkins. And now it's a case of as soon as I can get them out the field, for the beginning of September, I'm just carve as many as I can right through until Halloween, really.
It's remarkable. Do you have a background in art, Jamie?
Not really, no. I've always liked to draw. Do a bit of, or have done a bit of spray painting. But no, it's really, I don't know, there's just something about pumpkin carving that's really caught my attention, and that seems to be where I put all my effort. If I am drawing, it's always in the back of my mind thinking that this design's going to end up on a pumpkin at some point.
So this is seasonal work because of nature. You're not able to carve them in August.
Oh no, definitely not. No, there's a couple of foam ones behind me. I do make foam pumpkins, which I can carve all year round, which is something that happened as a result of being on furlough in lockdown. Actually, I ended up figuring out how to make those. But for real pumpkins, now you've got to wait. Really, sort of from early to mid-September is when you can get your hands on a real pumpkin, and obviously right through till the end of October.
So then you sort of rest for the other months of the year. Do you need a certain variety of pumpkin? Are you quite particular about which species?
Not particularly, no. For me, it's more about the size and shape. The one that you're looking at now, which I did as a charity one for Clare House, is probably the biggest one, which I've ever carved. But again, I definitely stay away from smaller pumpkins, stay away from really round pumpkins, because they can be quite difficult to carve the image into. What I look for is quite a tall pumpkin with a relatively flat front on it.
Do you preserve them, or how are they stored?
You can preserve them. Ideally, what you really need to keep them in a cool, dry environment before you carve them. Once you've carved them, if you just give it a wash with some cold water and bleach, you'll double the life of your pumpkin carving. If you really want to go to town on it, you can get epoxy resin and paint all the exposed areas in like a UV cured resin, which you'll use for fingernails and stuff. And then that will make it last 2 or 3 weeks really as a minimum.
Yeah, remarkable stuff. And is it a job now, Jamie? Do you make a living from this?
Yeah, so in 2019, after numerous requests to carve company logos and what have you, I decided to actually see if I could make a bit of money off it. Built a website, and then over the last couple of years, I've been really actually blown away by the amount of interest in it. Big international brands getting in touch with me. My biggest customer this year was Wizarding World. To celebrate 20 years of Harry Potter, they commissioned me to do some Harry Potter pumpkins, which I made some stencils and some video tutorials. Surprisingly, the media side of it has become one of the biggest sources of income. So obviously the pumpkin rots, it disappears. But then if you make these videos for people, time lapses of their logos being carved, then that's something they can wheel out every year. So, that's made it into more of a viable business option than just sort of carving pumpkins, which will rot after a week or two.
Well, no, good luck to you. It's a great skill you have. So what's your website called?
So it's pumpkinfreak.co.uk, or you can head over to my YouTube. I've got loads of tutorials on there. A big part of what I want to do is sort of help other people to carve better pumpkins as well. The last couple of years, it's got that busy that I've actually started to try and recruit other carvers into it, and I've got another 2 that sort of help me out now. But the tutorials are there really to try and get people to up their pumpkin game, and then if they find they've got a natural flair for it, get in touch. I'm always on the hunt to recruit new carvers in the UK, because there aren't that many of us over here, to be frank.
Do you eat any of the pumpkin?
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, the really big ones aren't, because they're so full of moisture, they're not too tasty. If you're going to eat a pumpkin, you want to really go for the smaller ones, and roast it up, mash it up, and I make a really nice pumpkin gnocchi with a sage butter, which is my absolute favourite. But yeah, you know, roasting it's absolutely amazing. Roasted, it goes really sweet and nice little crispy bits on the outside. So that's my favourite way to eat it anyway.
I think it's lovely. A bit of olive oil, some garlic. It really caramelizes, doesn't it? Pumpkin soup as well. You definitely don't want to throw it away. Well, Jamie, I mean, could you tell me the simple and basic approach for tomorrow? Lots of people will be preparing to cut faces into pumpkins. Clearly, little ones should have a parent around because it's very, very hazardous with a sharp knife. But what do you do? And what really, just in the short time we've got, what are the basics to carving a face in a pumpkin for a complete idiot like me?
So I absolutely avoid the supermarket pumpkin carving kits, primarily because they're so blunt. You have to apply so much pressure, which then makes it much more likely for an accident to happen. I mean, what I use is one of these, which is a Lino Cutter. You know, it's very difficult to cut yourself on these, and I'm just skimming the surface of the pumpkin to different depths. But you could do the same with, you know, just an ordinary knife, just scrape away and sort of just. I rarely cut all the way through the pumpkin, but if you can get yourself, you know, most craft stores will have one of these. They're fairly inexpensive and quite. It's a Lino Cutter. So this is a linoleum gouge, which you use to make printing blocks out of linoleum. But yeah, if you get your hands on one of these tomorrow, I mean, it's probably short notice now, but maybe for next year, you know, that's probably the best tool to have a go at this sort of pumpkin carving with.
And then you obviously take the content out and you're going to have it for dinner later. And what do you put inside? How are those brilliant pumpkins behind you illuminated?
Yeah, so I use LED lights. You know, these are rechargeable, weatherproof work lights, which I just pop inside of them.
Safer, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, I just think they kick out much more light as well. So you can get quite a lot of value range when you're carving a pumpkin this way. So, you know, those, or you can buy like puck lights online as well. You know, I think the first year I used candles, then switched to LEDs because they're just so much better.
I think so, and better when there are kids around. Well, you're an absolute genius. The work behind you is just stunning, I've got to say. It's a remarkable talent that you've got. The website is pumpkinfreak.co.uk, or go to YouTube and search the very same set of words. Jamie Jones, thank you, and good luck tomorrow. You'll be quite busy tomorrow. It's like Christmas Day for you.
So tomorrow's a day off. I've been busy all week running up to this. So
and it's all done now. It's all done. Yeah. Brilliant. Look, lovely to meet you, and congratulations. Let's speak in a year's time, and I might have a go at doing a bit of pumpkin carving, see how I get on. Thanks very, very much indeed, Jamie. Lots to come at 11. Uncancelled USA. We're going to speak to the Queen of US showbiz and royal reporting, Kinsey Schofield. We'll look at calls for Anthony Fauci, America's medical chief. Many want to see him resign and quit over COVID. And we'll also talk about America's reaction to the Queen's recent health issues. So always fun, always compelling. Can't wait for Kinsey. And in our media buzz next with Stefan Dom and Laura Dodsworth, is the EU punishing us for Brexit? See you in 2.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for Political Correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GBNews.
Hi, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Monarchy.
And we're hosting a show right here on GB News, 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday. Call to the point.
We're going to be talking about all the big issues that matter to you at home in Britain.
Absolutely, whether it's holding politicians to account, discussing what's taking place in the Channel, banging on about law and order, we're not afraid to do the absolute lot of it.
Yes, and if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we'll be saying it.
Make sure you're here 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday right here on GB News for To The Point.
Richard has emailed, "Hi Mark, Halloween may market itself as the scariest time of year, but there's something a lot more sinister than all the fake blood and trick-or-treating with kids high on sugar. In the UK, we will bin 8 million pumpkins after Halloween." In the UK, now that's a lot of pumpkins. Perhaps even more chillingly, this would also be enough to feed the whole nation for 5 days. You've still got 1 day to look up pumpkin soup recipes. Make soup, not waste. Richard and Eleanor. And Richard, you're absolutely right. Couldn't agree with you more. And thanks for pointing that out. We're going to get to some of your pet videos very shortly. Connor is busy compiling them as we speak. But it's time now to discuss the big stories of the day with my panel and react to tomorrow's front pages. And I'm delighted to say I've got some in my possession already. Let's start with The Observer. France and UK told end dispute or you will wreck COP26 summit. Yes, hopefully this impasse between the French and the Brits can be resolved in the coming days. Daily Star, David Jason exclusive. So sorry, Rodders, but my fave telly pal is a mouse. Would you Adam and Eve it? Only Fools legend, Sir David Jason, reckons his favourite role in his career was not Del Boy, but Danger Mouse. I couldn't agree more. I remember running home from school at 4 o'clock to watch it. Sunday Express, it's Boris the Gladiator. Boris Johnson hit back at French attempts to intimidate the UK over the fishing row as he battled to secure support among world leaders to prevent catastrophic climate change. With France and Britain locked in a gladiatorial contest over fleet rights in the Channel, the Prime Minister argued the future of humanity is threatened by rising temperatures across the globe. Okay, get to more front pages shortly. But with me for the rest of the show, it's a dream team panel, I've got to say, with a bit of star quality sprinkled in. Because we have writer, photographer and filmmaker, author of A State of Fear, Laura Dodsworth, and broadcasters, of course, columnists as well, and stars of Gogglebox, radio, TV, you name it, probably a musical soon. It's Steph and Dom.
Hi, Mark. Good evening.
Well, comic relief for sing and dance for comic relief.
Oh,
is
yeah.
anything to go by? No, there will not be a musical.
Have either of you been offered Strictly?
No, I suspect there's a very good reason for that.
I think they're missing a trick.
No, I think insurance is probably.
Yeah, I think there's a guaranteed broken limb in there somewhere along the line.
But can I just say, Dominic, that I watched the way you elegantly sashayed over to the sofa, and it was like Fred Astaire.
Well, it was, wasn't it? Really?
Well,
I was concerned I was going to trip, actually.
Yeah.
So it was quite.
And I thought you sort of your persona potentially, Steph, you could be like a sort of strict Eastern European dancer. You know what I mean? Cracking the whip with your partner.
well, yes, I would be very happy, but the tango, I would get nowhere near bending backwards. Honestly, you'd have to get a machine to do it.
They haven't brought in belly dancing on that yet, have they?
No.
That could be quite interesting.
Is that an offer?
Oh, no.
Excuse me.
It's got nothing to do with you. I'm just commenting on the fact that it's not one of the.
Goodbye.
It's not like the tango or the cha-cha-cha that comes in every year.
I think Dominic's in hot water already. It didn't take long, did it?
No.
Well, listen, I tell you what, let's get you out of trouble with our first story of this section, because the NHS is set to get £140 billion of funding this year. That's up nearly 40% since 2010. But what has actually improved despite the extra money? The Mail Online reports England's service has 20,000 fewer beds than it did in 2010. The waiting list for routine treatments has doubled, and the number of patients waiting in A&E for at least 12 hours before being cared for has increased every year. But at the same time, the NHS now has 180,000 more staff than it did a decade ago. 180,000. In fact, the total number of nurses is nearly 350,000. So, does it work? All this investment. It's your money, it's my money. Laura Dodsworth, are you concerned about this? But it seems that the more we spend, the worse it gets.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's something that really worries me is that our liberty is tethered to something on the basis of whether it's sustainable or unsustainable, whether the pressure's sustainable or unsustainable or not. And, you know, every year it's under unsustainable pressure. I'm struggling with that word. You mentioned that spending has gone up by 40% in 11 years, but the spending on education has gone up by less than 3%. That's that was reported in the Times this week. And there's something in that balance which isn't right, because all that spending on health is basically geared towards the elderly, but spending on education is geared towards the young. And when I read that, I just thought, well, that's everything. That's also, you know, that's like our whole epidemic management. It's not been geared towards the young. We've not been looking after the young.
So actually this has been a long-term assault on the interests of young people, long before the pandemic.
Yeah, I think so. I think the thing is, they're always trying to sink more money into this black hole of a money pit. And I think it's partly because politicians underestimate us, the voters. I mean, it's only through COVID I've realised how much they underestimate us because of all, you know, the whole behavioural science approach. But it's because they think that we worship it as a sacred cow, like primitives. And actually, I think, you know, the level of understanding and desire for the NHS is a bit more sophisticated than that. I think probably the whole nation would agree we want healthcare to be free at the point of access, and for nobody who can't afford to pay to not pay. Nobody wants to go back to pre-NHS levels. People living in slums of dying of typhoid.
People want to see it privatised. They just want it to work.
It's unsustainable and it's not working, and it needs radical reform. It doesn't just need money; it needs radical reform.
Well, it's very interesting, isn't it, Steph? Because next year, the cost of the NHS is anticipated to go beyond the entirety of income tax receipts in this country. So all income tax now goes to the NHS, 100% of it.
Ooh, well, that's.
And you two have paid a fair bit over the years.
Still doing.
Yeah.
You know.
Including for tonight, I hope.
Are we paying you for tonight?
I think
well,
we probably are.
Listen, I know the producer's given you a brown paper envelope, but I do hope you'll declare.
It's a suitcase.
Of course it is.
Are you getting a suitcase?
Can I be honest with you? There aren't notes in it, just bottles.
Yes, we had noticed that.
I hope that's all right.
It'll go down
Apparently
as in kind.
Yeah, that's you know, tax deductible. But look, I mean, it's a fortune, isn't it,
It's
Steph?
an absolute fortune, but for me, I'm not very well read on numbers and who gets what in budgets and what have you.
Sure.
Really am not. Far too busy doing my eyebrows and painting my nails and eating chocolates and thinking of fluffy kittens. But I would say we're alive thanks to, in the majority, the NHS. And if that were to be the first point on the agenda, I would happily carry on listening because I agree that it's a huge amount. I was looking at the graphs and interesting that the ambulance men actually, their employment has shot up in the last 3-4 years. And I found that really quite interesting. Whether their salaries have gone up somehow and it's a good gig.
Disproportionately,
Don't know.
Could be.
But all I would say is that for this year, I think it's a little unfair to debate the whole NHS picture without looking at the specifics of the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, look, Dom, the bottom line is that the NHS is an emotive issue, and every election, every major party says we will put more money into the NHS, we will not privatise the NHS. But I don't see the issues with it going away, and I don't see money as the solution.
No.
Well, it's an expensive beast. It's a very big beast. It's one of the largest employers in the world. I think, you know, the principal question, is it broken? I think, yes, it's broken, but I think it was broken very many years ago. It is the National Health Service. And I think there's an awful lot of money being spent on things that are not health-oriented. Yeah, we don't want to go back to the days of the plague, and we certainly don't want to get to the American way, where people are dying on the streets because they can't get the health. You know, if it scaled back to just dealing with health issues, you know, and take away all the other unnecessaries like cosmetics and bits and pieces that, if, quite frankly, if you want to have your eyebrows lifted, go and pay for it privately.
Well, yeah, I mean, the missus spends all your money doing exactly that.
Well, exactly, and what a lovely job she does of it as well. But she doesn't get it on the NHS.
No.
Yeah.
And where have the beds gone?
Yes. I mean, that's the point, isn't it? We went into this pandemic with a far smaller ICU capacity than the likes of Germany and Sweden.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, there are even fewer beds now. And another worry coming up this winter in terms of staff shortages is that if vaccines are mandated for NHS staff as well as care home workers, that's going to put even more pressure on staff supporting the NHS in the winter. There's kind of a bigger point I wanted to make about health, though, if that's right. You know, the NHS is always in crisis and not looking at opportunity, and it's always about unsustainable pressure and emergency and not prevention.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't think we're talking about some of the real issues in the room. For instance, over half of the country is overweight or obese, and think about all the NHS resources that go into lifestyle decisions. You know, like obesity, diabetes, hypertensive disorders. There's so much more that we could be doing about prevention that would then reduce the drain on the NHS. And we don't talk about this enough.
Well, I think 10% of the budget of the NHS goes towards type 2 diabetes. Now, there are a small number of cases of type 2 diabetes that are out with the power of the person that has it, but it's predominantly a lifestyle-related condition, and many people, as they enter middle age, even a small paunch, a little bit of a beer belly, is indicative that you're possibly pre-diabetic. So it's become something of an epidemic in itself, and it's a preventable illness. And now the likes of Dr. David Unwin, NHS GP, are proving that there's an answer, which is to change people's diet and reverse diabetes. But that's not a wider conversation in the NHS. It seems like the NHS continues to exist to prop up illness rather than, as Dominic rightly pointed out, to actually encourage health.
So even saying that, I was nervous because I thought, am I going to get tweeted that I'm fat shaming?
Oh, you'll get cancelled. But
there's always Dan Wootton's uncancelled
and actually,
slot,
by the way, can we just put paid to this idea that type 2 diabetes, and by the way, I would never judge anybody that is type 2 diabetic because, I mean, family members, you know, are in that situation. And it's the food environment that we live in. Yeah. Junk food and all that rubbish that's marketed to us. But it's not 10%. Because what about the 35-year-olds who need a knee replacement because they're so overweight? What about the dementia time bomb caused by illnesses like metabolic syndrome and type 2 diabetes? So it's not only that 10% of diabetes, it's all the other factors.
Well,
Cancer.
that information should be made available.
What should be made available?
All of that information
Correct.
just given.
Correct.
It should be told. The full story has to be given.
And you're so right. And this is my credo on this show, is that I don't think it's right to lecture people because everyone is a sovereign individual. But what I think everyone wants is, as Steph rightly said, information. So it's information, not instruction. There we are. Brilliant stuff. If you are curious about diabetes and type 2 diabetes, Dr. David Unwin is an NHS GP. I interviewed him on this show. He's on Twitter. And a lot of what he says, I think is really fascinating. And he's had great success with many of his patients. But of course, before you change your diet or your lifestyle, do consult your doctor. Now, earlier today, we had a situation with President Emmanuel Macron. Is he throwing his toys out of the pram? Because he awkwardly fist bumped with Boris Johnson at the G20 summit. France is threatening to block British boats from its ports and tighten checks on vessels if an issue over a lack of licences for small French vessels to fish in British waters is not resolved by Tuesday. Meanwhile, the French Prime Minister, Jean Castex, suggests Britain must be punished for Brexit. He's asked Brussels to make clear to Britain leaving the European Union is more damaging than remaining. Is it a threat or is it a convenient political tactic to look tough less than a year before the French general election? But it's exactly what we thought, Dominic, which is that the French and other European nations will want us to be punished for Brexit.
Well, I didn't think that.
Really? I mean, that was
No.
the fear of many Brexiteers.
Well, I'm sure it probably was. And I'm sure...
Made an example of, you know, like an errant schoolboy.
Well, probably, but I think the bigger message, actually, I think there was a big fear at the time that if we left, other people might start leaving, other countries might start leaving. And I think probably the EU sort of quietly got together and thought, if we make a little bit of an example of the UK, nobody else is going to jump out.
Yeah.
You know? So, I mean, I think this fishing thing is a storm in a fishbowl, really, because I think if you get down to the basics of it,
Well,
why are we giving licences? We're not denying them licences to fish our waters. They can fish their own waters, and we're not talking about international waters. Yeah. We're giving licences for them to come and fish in our water area. Why should we be doing that? But we are doing that. But there are restrictions, if you get right down to the nitty-gritty, that there's only a very small percentage who are being refused because they're not meeting the criteria, which is all about satellite navigation and that kind of stuff, and tracking and availability. So I think it's the French getting up on their high horse and postulating, if that's the right word, you know, and fluffing up his feathers.
Well, it could be. Look, Laura, love Brexit or hate it, the British people voted to leave a political structure, and the Europeans and the French can seek to punish us all they like, but I don't think they'll succeed.
I don't know. I mean, I just think it's playground politics. It's nasty.
But it's also like
not an
trade
elevated
wars.
level of debate.
Any historian will tell you that trade wars are a zero-sum game.
Absolutely. I mean, they just need to grow up and move on. Typical French. Sorry, French, for listening.
Ouch. OK, brilliant stuff. Well, one Parrot's taking photobombing to a whole new level by playing peekaboo with Brazilian CCTV. The turquoise-fronted Amazon Parrot was captured by a camera placed on a highway in the city of Curbita yesterday. The video's gone viral. It's been viewed thousands of times. Look at this. What a gorgeous creature. The parrot's scientific name is Amazona estiva, and it's one of the most common Amazon parrots kept as pets in South America. Let's just enjoy that for one more time. I love it. A global superstar. I've got to say, I do love a parrot, and that's definitely cheered me up. Well, it's reminded me that your videos are coming in thick and fast. Thank you so much for sending little videos of your cats, dogs, and other creatures. Connor, Cal, and Cameron are on the case to get those clips ready for the next hour, so do stay tuned. But coming up, it's Uncancelled USA with Kinsey Schofield, all things royal and entertainment. Looking forward to that. But first, the weather.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK is looking wet and windy for all, but becoming brighter for some by the afternoon. Let's take a look at the details. Early torrential rain will clear to leave sunshine and blustery, heavy and possibly thundery showers across the southwest. Very windy with coastal gales likely, particularly on the north coast. Dry at first, but torrential rain will arrive through the morning, bringing a period of squally winds across the southeast by lunchtime. The band of heavy rain will clear to the east first thing in South Wales to leave gusty winds and heavy or thundery showers. In northwest England, many will wake up to torrential rain and possibly squally winds, which could cause some localised flooding and travel disruption to parts of Lancashire throughout the day. Across northeast England, it will be a cloudy and cold start to the day. It will turn wetter towards lunchtime as the heavy rain arrives from the east. Windy with coastal gales. For southern Scotland, it will be a wet start to Sunday, and many people will see a short period of torrential rain and squally winds, remaining windy throughout the day. Northern Ireland will see the driest start as the rain clears off before dawn, though it will be very windy at times and heavy showers rattle through the region later. Squally rain will sweep across the UK through Sunday. Rain warnings are in force as flooding and travel disruption is possible. And that is how the weather is shaping up during tomorrow morning.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for Political Correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
Hi, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
And we're hosting a show right here on GB News, 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday. Call to the point.
We're going to be talking about all the big issues that matter to you at home in Britain.
Absolutely, whether it's holding politicians to account, discussing what's taking place in the channel, banging on about law and order, we're not afraid to do the absolute lot of it.
Yes, and if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we'll be saying it.
Make sure you're here 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday right here on GB News for To The Point.
So much to come. We're going stateside to the Queen of US royal and showbiz reporting, Kinsey Schofield. More from Steph and Dom with the big stories of the day right up until midnight. And we're going to play a game. That's right, Lost for Words. Paul McCartney has said that he actually wrote the words for A Day in the Life, not John Lennon. So we've got a game for you. So we want you to play along at home. We'll quote you some lyrics. You've got to name that tune. That's a bit of fun with our Great British Game Show later. But we've also got tomorrow's front pages. COP26, is it a cop-out? Your emails as well. So much more to come. But first, the news headlines with Karen Roberts.
Hello, here are the latest headlines. The Prime Minister says that COP26 will be the world's moment of truth on climate change. Boris Johnson, who is in Rome currently for the G20 meeting, is urging world leaders to use the summit in Glasgow to bring an end to climate change. Speaking at the meeting of world leaders in Italy, Mr. Johnson emphasised the importance of immediate action.
One thing we've got to achieve is to ensure that we keep alive the prospect of restricting the growth in the temperature of our planet to 1.5 degrees by the end of the century. That's what it's all about. If we can do that, then we stop the prospect of so much desertification. We stop the prospect of the huge geopolitical consequences of climate change.
Meanwhile, Boris Johnson has said French threats over fishing rights are unjustified and incompatible with the post-Brexit trade agreement. France is threatening to block British boats from its ports and tighten checks on vessels if the dispute isn't resolved by Tuesday. The Prime Minister is due to hold a short meeting with the French President Emmanuel Macron tomorrow. The Brexit Minister, Lord Frost, says the UK government is now actively considering launching dispute settlement proceedings. South Central Ambulance Service has declared a critical incident tonight due to an overwhelming volume of calls. In a statement posted on its social media page, the service said their staff were working extremely hard to respond to the demand. The service, which covers Berkshire, Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire and Hampshire, is urging people to use it wisely. The climate activist Greta Thunberg has arrived in Glasgow ahead of the COP26 summit. The 18-year-old from Sweden was escorted by police and activists as crowds mobbed around her outside Queen Street station. Ms Thunberg travelled to Scotland after taking part in a demonstration outside the Standard Chartered Bank in London. It's taken the world by storm in recent weeks, and now that Halloween has arrived in South Korea, it seems the majority ruled in favour of Squid Game costumes. Fans took to the streets of Seoul dressed as their favourite characters from Netflix's dystopian show. Earlier this month, Squid Game became the streaming giant's biggest ever series launch and has been watched by 142 million households. You're right up to date. Now back to Tonight Live with Mark.
You know I love your emails and, of course, your company every night, and thank you so much for tuning in to Tonight Live. And I especially like it when we don't agree, because I want this show to be a place where we can have discourse and where people can respectfully disagree and we can all get a bit more enlightened as a result of what the other person has to say. You know as well as I do that, unfortunately, the modern world is not like that. Twitter is not like that, but GB News is the home for balanced debate. So I enthusiastically welcome any friction in your views, and I've got plenty coming in. Steve, thank you so much for emailing the programme. Dear Mark, I enjoy GB News, but your comparison of Sweden's COVID measures and deaths to the UK or Scotland is misleading. Why don't you compare Sweden to similar countries like Norway, Finland and Denmark, which are half the population and had far fewer deaths than Sweden? 164, 209 and 466 deaths per million of population. Compare that to Sweden, which has 1,472 deaths per million. It shows a clearer result as to what the impacts are of the measures, and these results show the impact is significant. Why did the UK have such a high death rate when it had COVID measures and Sweden didn't? Well, that's probably complicated, and maybe health, diet, obesity, etc. are factors. The comparison of Sweden to Scandinavian countries clearly makes the comparison more like for like and valuable. Well, Steve, thank you so much for sharing your views on that. Sweden, of course, apologised for exposing their care homes to the virus early in the pandemic, which is what they've argued is the consequence of and the cause of that higher figure compared to their neighbours. But your point is well made, and I appreciate it. And it's all about opinions. And do keep them coming, Mark at gbnews.uk. Something else from Barbara says, Dear Mark, Barbara, thank you so much for your email as well. How are you tonight? Babs, here we go. Never mind this year, the NHS failed a long time ago and hasn't recovered. We don't get quality of life as they waste so much that they can never afford. There's so much wrong that I'd be here all night. Who's the ignorant person who said someone was pre-diabetic just because he had a beer belly? That's what I call prejudice from a naturally thin person, brackets, who could be harbouring visceral fat. You have to be tested, not just somebody looking at you. Now, Barbara, you're absolutely right, of course. You can be diabetic or pre-diabetic and quite slim. But most doctors will tell you that visceral fat, a gut, a belly is certainly a clue as to metabolic issues. But I do take your point. I mean, you can be massive and still not diabetic. So your point is well made, Barbara, and thank you for that. I look forward to more of your emails. Always love hearing from you. So it's just past 11 o'clock, 6 minutes past. Uncancelled in a moment. But first, let's take a look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages. And let's start with the Sunday Mail. There you go, great Scottish paper. Greta Mania. Greta Thunberg was mobbed as she stepped off the train in Glasgow last night for COP26. 1,000 people were waiting to give the teenage climate activist a rock star's welcome to Scotland. OK, next up, Sunday Telegraph. Johnson demands EU rein in Macron. PM warns France's fishing threats show Brexit negotiations were not in good faith. Meanwhile, Prince says private sector must help solve climate change as moment of truth arrives. That is the Prince of Wales there speaking out about the environment. Now, the independent fishing war with France heats up. Awkward photograph of the Prime Minister and Emmanuel Macron. Despite the jollity, President Macron at the G20 and the Prime Minister are having a hot debate about the fishing waters of this country. The Prime Minister refused to rule out legal action against France. Meanwhile, the UK is failing poor nations on climate, warns advisor. Britain has let down the world's poorest nations by failing to help them tackle the climate crisis. Lord Deben, the government's top advisor, has warned of this issue. The chair of the Climate Change Committee said, referring to the Industrial Revolution, the UK was most to blame for climate change and had not done enough to secure global funding for those now hit hardest by it. There you go, another Brit at the heart of power that wants to talk down this country. Sorry, folks, I'm not having it. What absolute bunkum. Numpty. What have we got next? Where should we go now? Let's go to the Mirror. Thank you, Ross. Sheer pride. Superstar Ed's surprise duet with girl who beat meningitis. Ed Sheeran performs a duet with the Mirror Pride of Britain's Child of Courage winner after singing the little star's praises. He hailed his superfan, Harmony Rose Allen, who's 7, as incredible for taking on huge challenges to raise £100,000 for charity despite losing her limbs to meningitis. She's a remarkable young woman and a true inspiration. What a story. And well done, Harmony Rose. What an absolute superstar. I mean, if Sheeran's a superstar, so are you. What about the Sunday people? As world leaders gather for climate summit, stop this sick slaughter. Telly star Ricky Gervais today calls for an immediate ban on importing hunt trophies. The Prime Minister Boris Johnson pledged 2 years ago to stop the vile practice, but a law has been delayed. And Mail on Sunday, massive cyber heist rocks high society jeweller Graf. Hackers have plundered the personal details of world leaders, Hollywood A-listers and billionaire tycoons in a massive virtual heist on an exclusive jewellery firm, according to the Mail on Sunday. My heart bleeds. Let me produce this miniature violin for all involved. And the Sunday Times, soldier suspect joked about Kenya murder. Tasteless Facebook posts on mother's death. Army criticised for its inadequate response. A dreadful story that. Also, Prince Andrew, my accuser is a sex trafficker. And firm evidence, according to the Sunday Times journalist, that the handshake is back. Apart from Nicola Sturgeon, who said in an interview with Vogue magazine, she won't be shaking hands with anyone in the future, least of all a man. What a lovely thing to say. So surprising from Nicola Sturgeon. Lots more to come. Let's do this. It's time now for Uncancelled USA, in which we take a look at the dark underbelly of the news agenda. In the company of the Queen of Hollywood showbiz and royal reporting, very good friend of mine, Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kinsey.
Mark, are you cheating on me with Perez Hilton?
Never.
Okay.
He is not fit.
There was some pretty good chemistry there.
He is not fit to polish your Jimmy shoes.
Yes.
Perez Hilton.
Oh, wait.
You know.
I also wanted to show you my my Halloween costume this year.
Listen, there are kids watching. You should have warned us. I could have told viewers to look away for those easily offended. Now, Kinsey, you are the queen of US showbiz and royal reporting. Perez is great fun, but he's no Kinsey. Let's talk about the Queen. She's also irreplaceable, just like you. How have stories around the Queen's health gone down in America?
Well, we do have people that, we're pretty concerned, and you can see that through the headlines we have here in the States. They're curious, but I also, as somebody that loves the royal family and watches the royal family, I remember that Queen Victoria mourned for Prince Albert for 40 years. The fact that we saw the Queen so quickly after Prince Philip's death was incredible. We saw her a lot after his death, which surprised me quite a bit. And, her mother lived to be 101 years old. So I am firmly under the belief that she is just needs a nap or two, just needs some rest. And she's quite frankly, owed that at this point in time. And so I hope, and my thoughts and prayers are with the royal family, but I also remember that we saw them kind of frazzled and surround themselves by Prince Philip. We saw them pursue him when he was ill, which alerted us to the fact that perhaps it was really serious, and we're not necessarily seeing that same urgency in this instance. So again, I'm very much praying for her. I love her dearly. I think she's absolutely precious, but I wouldn't go overboard with some of the coverage the way I've seen it.
I think you're absolutely right. She simply needs a rest. That is very clear, and that's the message from the palace. She appeared online because this woman, as you know, is unstoppable. And here's a clip of her in action on Zoom.
Very glad to have the chance to see you, if only mechanically this morning. I don't know what you do with it. You put it in a cupboard.
Somewhere safe. This evening I shall show it to the children and the grandchildren who are waiting in our house.
All right. Well, that'll be nice. Well, it's rather a nice medal, isn't it?
I love the description of the internet as mechanical, and this woman is certainly not in decline.
Absolutely. I mean, you and I are mechanically, we're just mechanically friends. That's really the only way we know each other. And I'm okay with that. No, absolutely. She is so chipper, so witty. She's on her game, and I absolutely adore her. So I look forward to seeing her again soon. But you know what? I'm perfectly okay with seeing her just over Zoom. I almost feel like the pandemic really was beneficial for the royal family's brand, because all of the sudden, instead of just shaking hands with strangers on the street, which they were no longer able to do, we were able to see them communicating with all of these charity workers, with all these NHS workers. We were actually able to see them engage with people for the first time, to communicate back and forth. We got to hear their voices more often. We got to see Prince William's quick wit. And you know, I think that while it's been a horrible time for the world, as far as the royal family's brand is concerned, it almost elevated them globally, because we had more access to them than we've ever had before. And specifically with the Queen, we've heard her speak more in the last year and a half than we've heard in so long. So, you know, I think it's benefited that brand immensely for them to have to convert to Zoom, to have to convert to the digital age, or mechanically, and, you know, to communicate with their subjects that way. It's been really fascinating to see.
Well, I completely agree. We've seen Prince William and Kate surprise people on Zoom as well. And I think that the Queen has actually really opened up in the last couple of years. It's been a tough time. Her country and, of course, the world has been in the grip of the pandemic. And very sadly, she lost her beloved husband. But she definitely does, notwithstanding her sort of intermittent health issues, seem to have a spring in her step, a twinkle in her eye, and a smile on her face. The Prime Minister commented on the Queen and her health just recently. Kinsey, take a look.
It's very important that she should follow her doctor's advice, but as you know, she's determined to be there at the cenotaph. I've no doubt that will happen. I think that we've just got to let her get on and rest. But as you know, she's very, very hardworking. She continues to be at her desk.
I want to get to quite an important email. Occasionally, you have to sort of interrupt the flow when editorially something happens on a rolling news channel. I've had an email from Leona who says, "Dear Mark, why didn't Prince Harry marry Kinsey Schofield?" I'll continue. "She's so beautiful and she has a great personality. Harry would have done so much better." Any comment from you?
I mean, this is why this is my favorite show and channel in the entire world. It's the best. It's good TV.
Well, look, I'm your #1 fan, but clearly Leona is too. And every time you're on, we get a flood of emails and tweets as well. So it really is the highlight of our show at the weekend to have you on. And let's talk about somebody that's going through a tough time and having relationship problems. Joanne Griffith and a messy social media situation with estranged wife Alice Evans. Tell me more. And for those that don't know, who is Joanne Griffith?
Okay, well, I actually did enjoy him in the Fantastic Four. He's also in Titanic, but I would tell you I did not know the man's name. I knew his face. He has got a very handsome face. He's a movie star, but he was not a household name in the States until he filed for divorce against his wife, Alice Evans, who's also an actress. This happened in March. His poor wife found out about him filing for divorce over the internet and really started hammering him online after that happened. She was devastated. She said that he was leaving her and her daughters. You know, I don't know her personally, but she does have a very impressive resume. You can read her bio, but you also can see that there are gaps in that resume. So you have to suspect that she made some professional sacrifices, some physical sacrifices for her family. And she is really angry, and she's taking it out on Joanne on social media. And I'm kind of team Alice on this. I hate to break it to you. Like, I have no regrets. I feel really guilty for her. If he had not posted a picture of his new girlfriend on Instagram, I would have said perhaps he's just unhappy and he has decided to move on. He's no longer in love, and that would have been fine. But Instagram is a place, generationally, Instagram is a place that is not for a man of his age and his buddies. Instagram, their demographic, they're targeting people his daughter's age. So to post a picture of him and his new 20-something-year-old girlfriend on Instagram, it feels arrogant. It feels callous. This is something that his children can stumble upon. And it almost makes this whole thing look like a midlife crisis versus whatever it could have looked like. If you wanted to introduce the world to your new girlfriend, I suspect that, or I would have personally staged paparazzi photos, handed them to Page Six, handed them to People magazine, walking down the street holding hands. That's the way to do it humbly. That's the way to do it under the radar. But to post the pictures on Instagram at the same time as your 20-something-year-old girlfriend, who is likely, perhaps, allegedly behind the double posting of the Instagram pictures, it feels so cruel to his current wife. They're not divorced yet. It feels so cruel to his wife and daughters.
I think it's insensitive. Here is the tweet from his estranged wife, Alice Evans. Ross has got this, so let's flash it up on the screen. Take a look. So it turns out that my husband, after 2 years of telling me I'm a bad person and I'm not exciting, and he no longer wants to have sex with me, and he just wants to be on set abroad, he has been in a relationship for 3 years behind all of our backs. Good luck, Bianca. Ouch.
Oof.
That's a roast.
She dropped the mic right there. And you just have to wonder what he was thinking, what he thought was going to come of this. She's been very vocal ever since, March. So what was his plan? Did he think that, he was just going to go on and continue to take all of the acting jobs Dominic West turned down and everything was going to be fine? I don't know what he thought was going to happen. But, tweets are tweets. Don't forget, Lisa Left Eye Lopez burned her boyfriend's house down. I'd take a mean tweet over, my house being burned down any day. So Alice Evans is not the villain here. It's very much like the Charles and Diana instance where his team is trying to make her look crazy. And if you look through her feed, she reacts to that. And she says, I'm sorry that dealing with my divorce or that dealing with my marriage crumbling after 20 years is inconvenient for you. She's really witty and she's going to pull through and she is going to come out on top after all of this. That's my personal opinion.
I'm sure she is. I'd like her to become a bigger movie star than that charlatan of a husband of hers. Very briefly, with the clock against us, Kinsey, we wouldn't normally talk about COVID because my viewers love having you on the show because it's fun showbiz stuff. But Anthony Fauci, America's medical chief, is something of a national celebrity. And Senator of Kentucky, Rand Paul, wants to see him fired, wants to see him stand down. What is the current position of Anthony Fauci? Does he enjoy the support of the American people?
You know, it's a recent poll came out that said that for the first time, I think really that more people would like to see him step down than people enjoy seeing him in his position. Things kind of went south early on with Fauci for the American public because there was no consistency when it came to his mask policy. But most recently, he was on a weekend news program and said he wasn't certain whether or not the American public were going to be able to be with their family this holiday season. Now, keep in mind, it's football season. So we're sitting at home watching these thousands upon thousands of people sitting in stadiums, watching football, watching basketball, and watching baseball, thinking, so these thousands of people can watch these guys play on fake artificial grass, but I cannot see my grandmother. It's just, he has no consistency. I think that people are kind of sick of his, it feels like, where do you really stand? Where do you truly stand? So I think it would benefit the American public if we could replace all of them, but I'd say let's start with Fauci.
Yeah, I wonder whether the Americans should employ Joanne Griffith as their medical chief, because I don't think he could do a worse job than Anthony Fauci, but of course that's just my view. Listen, great to have you on the show. Can't wait for a week's time. Thank you so much to the brilliant Kinsey Schofield. Her website, by the way, is must read. It is called To Die For Daily, and it's very popular. Find out why. Check it out. Now, coming up before midnight, my team have put together another great British game show. Tonight, Lost for Words. Paul McCartney has said that he actually wrote the words to A Day in the Life, not John Lennon. So we're going to read our panel and you at home a series of pop lyrics. You've got to guess what the song is. We'll do that plus react to the other big stories of the day, including a mum on OnlyFans banned as a school volunteer because of her private life. Should it matter what you do in your private life? Should it affect your job? We'll discuss all of that, and don't forget Steph and Dom live in the studio. Goggle Bops superstar, easy for you to say, of course, and my brilliant colleague Laura Dodsworth as well. Lots to get through, and your emails. See you in 2.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for Political Correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
Hi, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
And we're hosting a show right here on GB News, 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday. Call to the point.
We're going to be talking about all the big issues that matter to you at home in Britain.
Absolutely, whether it's holding politicians to account, discussing what's taking place in the Channel, banging on about law and order, we're not afraid to do the absolute lot of it.
Yes, and if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we'll be saying it.
Make sure you're here 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday right here on GB News for To The Point.
Steph and Dom and my pal Laura Dodsworth are ready to react to the big stories of the day, including a woman that was on OnlyFans. She's got an OnlyFans account, and that's a kind of subscription service with rather saucy pictures that you sell to your subscribers. Well, she wasn't allowed to volunteer for a very charitable cause. Is that right? Should your private life affect your job? or indeed your hobbies. We'll get to that very, very shortly. But earlier in my monologue, I said that I would rather be showing you cat videos than talking about COVID. I want this to end, you want this to end, and I think that at some point it will. I'm confident that we're at the tail end of the pandemic, and therefore we must be optimistic. But I said at the end I'd rather show you some cat videos. So what we're going to do now is show you a viewer selection of pet videos. I asked you at the beginning of the show, I said, look, if you've got a video of your cat, your dog, your budgerigar, send it in, and you have sent in so many. So thank you very much for fulfilling my request. Here is Totty and Flick. And they're owned by Sandra. And aren't they gorgeous? Steph.
They should be on Got Talent.
They really should. Pets Got Talent.
Oh,
they
so
are
cute.
just cute. They look so happy. Cocker Spaniel and what would that be? Labrador?
Cockapoo.
They are
That looks
gorgeous.
like a lab.
Spaniel.
Well done, Sandra. That's Totty and Flick, who are absolute gorgeous
Thank
dogs.
you both for watching.
Exactly. Oh no, I mean some dogs are my best viewers. Yeah. They're positively drooling. They're drooling when I'm on air.
Yeah.
Okay, how about this? This is Lily. Oh, hello, Lily.
She's like, yeah, shut up.
Absolutely good. Now, would that be a King Charles Spaniel?
Yeah. Can't be asked to get up.
No way.
No, that looked...
It does look a little bit.
Really cute. And that's Lily, who's owned by Sally. Sally, congratulations. Lily is an absolute
She's
babe.
just like, she's me on the sofa. Yeah.
We love that. I tell you, I knew these pet videos would hit the spot. How about this? OK, we've got some cats now. This is Rita's cat. Oh, really pretty. And
Ready for
love the bow
bingo
tie.
night.
Not only do I like the cats and the bow tie, I love the conservatory as well. Very nicely done. Well done, Rita. How about this? This is Arthur, who's owned by Jane. Jane. Hello,
He needs a
Arthur.
good square meal.
Oh my gosh! Arthur is watching GB News. There you go. He's got excellent taste. He's watching GB News and his
then he's
tail
turned round.
is wagging.
And he's sat there with his back to you.
Well, it's funny because whilst that was going on, that was a debate on screen about whether we should bring back capital punishment. But all Arthur wants to do is go for walkies.
And doesn't want to hear you. See you.
Can I just say that Arthur, with his howling, makes a lot more sense than I make every time I'm on air. So, Jane, you've raised the level there. Congratulations to all of you for having such lovely cats and dogs. We'll play more. We've got more, haven't we, Connor? But I mean, later on? Yep, definitely. There you go. We can treat you to some more viewer pets later in the show. Because here's the point. We are through the worst of the pandemic. I'm certain of that. And we want to be cheery. My glass is always half full. And I promise you, you have my word, our best days lie ahead. I really believe that. Now, let's get to the big stories of the day with writer, photographer and filmmaker Laura Dodsworth and broadcasters, columnists, radio hosts, journalists, you name it, Dom and Steph and Dom. So, look, it's a really, really big story that I want to cover now. A mum has been banned from volunteering at her son's primary school after it was discovered she had an X-rated OnlyFans account. I wonder if Dom is now sweating because he might get outed as a secret OnlyFans artist himself. Who knows? 30-year-old Victoria Treese is now suing Orange County Public Schools District in Florida for $1 million. Treese was officially kicked off campus after a parent anonymously tipped off school officials about Victoria's racy images and the way she earns a living. She says she never behaved inappropriately whilst working at the school. Let's take a look.
It's humiliating to have people judge you for something that when you feel like what you're doing isn't wrong, in a sense. I would say that it's nobody's position to judge what anybody does in their private life.
Families in, we'll get to that, it's families involved in this story said that they were offended by the kind of activity she got up to. So what do we think about this? I mean, Laura, do you think it's a private matter or do you believe that having an OnlyFans account makes it inappropriate for you to do volunteering work?
Well, let's just shift that pronoun. Let's say if one does it, because, you know, saying if I do it, I don't have an OnlyFans account. Just
never say never?
No, never. I'm going to say never. All right.
You know what? It could be your pension.
I'm going to say never, thank you. It could be your pension.
The only reason I said that is because I thought in the back of my mind, should I start one?
No.
It could be a money spinner, Steph.
If I looked like that, I would.
Right.
Really?
And do you think that these school groups are wrong to freeze her out for having, you know, this sort of secret second career?
Absolutely.
Really? Why?
Because it's none of their business what she does for a living.
Yeah, and she's not breaking the law.
No.
Hang on, you think it's right for her to be
I think
excluded
she
from the
can
school?
do exactly as she pleases.
Yes.
It is not part of school policy. I doubt that your mother makes videos with sexy knickers on.
I think it's a little bit more than that. But I think
Not really.
the problem
Boils
is...
down
Showing a bit too much knowledge there, Dom.
Sweaty.
I've done my research.
I've done my
What's happened there,
research.
Dom, is I think you might have walked into a bear trap.
No,
but
I haven't.
seriously, I mean, do you think... I mean, this woman wants to actually volunteer. She wants to help out.
And I think that's very noble of her. But she has to remember she's in America, and America is probably one of the most puritanical countries in the world. And all the other soccer mums and all the mums and dads who gather at the, you know, their parties, they're all going to be grabbing their husbands and going, don't go anywhere near her, she's a porn star. And they won't stand for it. So it's, you know, it's not a matter of whether...
Look, there are some grown-up pictures coming now. Now, if you don't want to see something that's patently quite erotic, you might want to look away briefly. It can't be any more excruciating than Arthur barking, but here you go. There's
She looks
some
fantastic.
rather saucy images. But what about Laura, her appropriateness for, let's say, being a primary school teacher or something like that?
But she's not a primary school teacher. She's a parent at the school who is volunteering on field trips and for classroom work, OK? She's a parent at the school. So to tell her that she's not allowed into the school to volunteer is just totally inappropriate.
Well, Dom's got it
Now,
right.
but
Puritanical.
Puritanical.
It's moralising, it's judgmental.
But do you know what? These kinds of situations bring up lots of complex perspectives, and that's OK. It feels like we're all kind of in agreement, but you could have a very valid debate about this. Now, she was only volunteering, and also OnlyFans is subscription. The children at the school never saw her professional life, and they wouldn't see it because it's a subscription site for adults. So it's completely separate. It's not like every parent with a child at that school lives a squeaky clean life and doesn't have a saucy photo floating around on the internet somewhere. It's just not their profession. But, you know, there are things like, say, shall I go there? Yeah, OK, like story time with drag queens. I mean, some people have, you know, doubts about that. You know, children don't exist in a completely sterile bubble, but also parents want to rightfully protect them from sexualised content. But she wasn't presenting them with anything sexualised. She was a parent who'd go in perfectly normal clothes and help with lab experiments.
Well, I actually think you can have an OnlyFans account. And by the way, if you don't know what OnlyFans is, it's a subscription. I mean, I should get Dom to explain in detail.
Another parent subscribe to it?
Well,
I was just going there.
Who knows? But I mean, OnlyFans, it's a subscription service, and what happens is you choose somebody that you're going to pay 5, 10, 15 quid a month to, a lot of money, and you get exclusive photos and videos. Sometimes they're quite innocuous and it's just swimwear and rather sensual shots.
How do you
and some
know
of it,
this?
Some of it is porn, because I actually interviewed a couple of people on OnlyFans. But my view is that whatever you do on OnlyFans, you should have any career you like, including being a school teacher.
I agree with you.
Yes, I totally agree with you.
And I don't think it affects the children. Sorry to interrupt.
Sorry to interrupt
Again.
you
So,
again.
no, my
That's quite...
apologies.
That's not at
My
all.
apologies.
You carry on.
No, it was me.
No, you can't. OK, well, I'll crack
beg
on then.
pardon.
What they're doing is absolutely wrong, but...
And then I was going to say sorry.
The point that you stumbled across is that she'd been volunteering probably for quite a long time, and nobody gave a damn about it until one of the other members, one of the school, one of the other parents somehow stumbled across this site, so they're into watching it, and that other parent shouldn't have dobbed her in and it would never have come up. Yeah. The fact is, one of the other soccer mums has gone, oh, Jenny likes to take her clothes off and take, you know...
Yes.
it's wrong, but it's America.
But I tell you, it's America. And another thing about the story, though, is she's suing them for $1 million.
She is.
Yeah. Now, does she want to get back into school and continue with volunteering, or does she just want to make a ton of money?
Or
I mean,
did
it's
she-
a very
Exactly.
litigious culture,
Or
isn't
did
it?
she dob herself in?
Is it cynical, me? Did she say, right, get a whole load of people together, you sign in, you tell the school board, then we'll sue them. $1 million, we'll split it.
Look at the
That's
publicity.
$1 million that's going to come out of that local education board or
She
school.
could have set it up.
It's
She
a
might
lot
be
of
bright
money.
enough.
Her MySpace or whatever it is, My Face or whatever you sit on, is
I beg your pardon.
absolutely
You can't
going
say that.
bananas.
I think you have to pay more for sit on.
No, yeah.
I think that's an extra tenner a month.
You really, really went there, didn't you?
Whatever this, my fans or whatever it is, I really don't know.
Someone told me that Dom had had a very sheltered upbringing, but I'm not seeing it.
I went to a Catholic boys'
I am
school,
never
nothing
seeing
sheltered
it
about
again.
that.
They told me that his performance on this show would be clean as the driven snow.
And it has been. I'm just saying, whatever site she's doing, because of all the publicity now, she's a very clever woman. She doesn't need the money to sue Orange County. She's probably made it by everybody around the world checking out and signing into her thing. She's
Kerry
probably already got
Katona,
it.
the pop star formerly of Atomic Kitten, told me on this programme earlier in the week that OnlyFans has made her a millionaire. I mean, this is going to be a growing phenomenon, isn't it?
Right, I'm getting a boob job and I'm getting a better camera at home. That's me.
Do you know what's good, though? You've already got a cameraman and he's got a steady hand.
Is he?
So I'm told.
I don't know.
Gets a
Brilliant
bit
stuff.
shaky at times.
Well, I'll tell you something. We'll get to another very controversial story because we like the spicy stories on this show. Leeds University students have demanded their Vice-Chancellor and senior employees include gender pronouns when introducing themselves in meetings. In an open letter signed by LGBT plus staff and student groups, the university was accused of having a deeply entrenched culture of transphobia and also want their Vice-Chancellor to state her preferred gender pronouns in her email signature. In a statement, the university said, "We strongly deny the assertion that we have created a hostile environment for transgender staff and students, but recognise that we need to do more to alleviate concerns that have been put to us, and we're working with our community to do so. We have a clear and unwavering commitment to ensuring equality, diversity and inclusion for all." It goes on to say the use of pronouns in emails or in meetings is a personal choice. We do not have policies on this, but do provide support and resources to help inform that choice. And I agree with Leeds University. It's a great university, Laura. I'm radically pro-trans. Close friends that have been on that important and joyous journey. I see it as no different to being someone that's gay. It's not a life choice. You are a gay person. I spoke this week to the first openly gay footballer in the world, an Australian player. But to force people to announce their gender pronouns at the beginning of every meeting is beyond the pale for me. Expecting civil servants or academics to put pronouns on an email signature, it's just not right.
It's just it's coercive and it feels a bit bullying. I think we have to be really careful because it's authoritarian to try to control people's ideological beliefs and their language. So, I mean, if I met somebody who told me their pronouns, I would probably be inclined to respect it.
Of course.
However, compelling that speech is another thing. And then compelling me in a workplace to announce my pronouns is another level of compulsion and authoritarianism. I think it's really going to turn people off. And I mean, this goes back a while now. Do you remember Jordan Peterson? Was it back in 2016? He had to leave his job as a professor. There were some really weird things that happened. There were protests. I think the weirdest thing was his door was glued shut because he wouldn't comply with gender-neutral pronouns.
Yeah.
And he said it was authoritarian and it's a dangerous precedent.
Yes, that's right. And a video was circulating this week of him speaking a couple of years ago saying, you've got to speak up against this. You cannot be silenced. Your obligation. If you think something's wrong. Steph?
I also think that if you are to stand up, they specifically, in this letter that they signed, specifically said at meetings, when introducing themselves at meetings. So I'm absolutely sure, should whomever talking stand up, introduce themselves with their pronoun of choice, you can guarantee everybody in the meeting is not going to be listening to a single word he or she,
Brilliant point.
whatever, is saying, because they're already thinking, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I wonder when that happened. Don't look like it. They've gone that way,
Yes.
thinking about everything to do with that pronoun.
What is a gender?
You leave, you've lost your point.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant point. I totally agree. It's a huge distraction.
What is a gender-neutral pronoun?
Well, I suppose that would be it. So if for example...
That's offensive, isn't it?
These, they're common.
There are, I believe there are almost 100 potential genders, perhaps more than that. But gender neutral would certainly, you would be avoiding he or she. So you might be they, which I believe Sam Smith, the pop star, identified as they for a while.
But I think that would probably apply to schizophrenics, wouldn't it? But not.
Because of the plural.
Yeah.
Yeah, they. I mean, well, are people supposed to stand up and go, "Good evening, you know, I'm him, Dom Parker. I'm he, Dom Parker. He, him. My name
My name is Dominic
dictates
and I'm a he.
that I'm a man." Jane stands up. I don't need to be told Jane is her, she. It's slightly offensive.
But I like the fact that you've just brought up that you didn't know what a gender-neutral pronoun is and that it's confusing, because the thing is, pronouns in language have always been used to denote sex, not feelings about identity. And you can't expect people, and maybe we shouldn't expect people, to just change overnight, because we've always known language the way we've known it.
Transphobia and rejecting gender ideology are two very different things, in my opinion. Because certainly in my life experience with people that have become a trans woman or trans man or a trans woman, I mean, there is transphobia, of course, far too much. But certainly my experience within social circles, family members, I remember as a small child being told that a friend of the family, and I'll change the name, but a friend of the family was Steve and is now Stephanie. And I remember my dad, it took him, a few days to remember that and remember that it was she, not he, because that's something you would do out of respect. What this is ushering in gender ideology, which challenges the idea that there are two biological sexes. The minute you start putting she, him and he, her on an email, you're accepting the idea that there are more than two biological genders.
Yeah,
aren't you? Don't you think it's a Trojan horse?
I do.
You think?
Well, yeah, I do. I think the trans people I know want to fly under the radar. They don't actually don't want to make a fuss about pronouns at all. So,
It's very difficult when your ex-husband of 30-odd years rings you up, and the reason for the divorce was, I don't want children, who has subsequently gone off, remarried, had children, rings you up 30, 40, and says, "Hi, my name is now Susan."
Yeah.
That is a very bitter and difficult pill to swallow, because you've been married to a he, and I immediately felt sorry for him, her, because she had to hold it in for so long until the world was ready to accept him, her.
Did this, without wishing to, intrude on private grief, did this happen to you? Or are you giving a hypothetical example?
I'm giving an example of
a situation.
It's not
is
my
it somebody that you
personal
know?
narrative. Correct.
Right. So somebody that was married to a man, had a family, and then years later that person got back in touch and said, "I'm a woman."
Pretty much.
And how did your friends process that?
Well, we didn't really talk about it very much. We laughed a lot because he didn't have to change his letterhead, which was quite funny.
That's helpful. Monogrammed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was my beginning of awareness that this was going on.
Yeah.
It actually made me feel sorry for him, and I opened my ears.
Yeah. And I think that's what we have to do. And there will be people who are trans women and trans men watching the show, and actually please share your thoughts on this, because I honestly see a distinction between coercing people into signing up for gender ideology and forcing pronouns onto emails versus transphobia, which is the most wretched and awful thing, just as bad as racism, just as bad as homophobia. But what's your view? Mark at gbnews.uk. Coming up, we're going to have some fun. We have a game show based around the news. It's a topical game show. We're going to get you to guess the song lyrics. Which song are they? This in regard to Paul McCartney, who's in the news, and I'll tell you why after this.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for Political Correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
Hi, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Monarchy.
And we're hosting a show right here on GB News, 9:30am till 12pm, every single weekday. Call to the point.
We're going to be talking about all the big issues that matter to you at home in Britain.
Absolutely, whether it's holding politicians to account, discussing what's taking place in the Channel, banging on about law and order, we're not afraid to do the absolute lot of it.
Yes, and if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we'll be saying it.
Make sure you're here 9:30am till 12pm, every single weekday, right here on GB News, for To The Point.
My team have been hard at work processing the excellent pet videos that you've been sending in. I just thought we could do with a bit of cheering up. I said in my monologue earlier that I'd rather be showing you cat videos than ranting about COVID. Well, you've sent your cat videos in and your dog videos. I've got to say, you are the best viewers ever. Love having you with me on Tonight Live every evening. And I just asked you for some videos. We've had hundreds. So these, by the way, are only chosen on basically what we could get our hands on. And I apologise if we don't manage to show every pet. But this is Vita. And this is Vita doing a bit of damage to a cardboard box.
Loves a cardboard box.
She's is trouble. Beautiful. Now, is that a Persian cat?
Looks like a Siamese.
Siamese.
I think she's making her
gorgeous. I love that video. That's Lynn's cat. I am adoring that.
I wouldn't want to empty
warmed
that
the cockle
cat
of my heart.
litter.
Yeah, get the vacuum cleaner out, Lynn. Thank you for showing us Vita. How about Honey?
Whoa.
Now, is this Honey? Let me just see. No, this is not. Oh, it is Honey. Are you sure? I think that's Jenny's cat is Honey, isn't it?
It looks like a lion.
So this is Angela's cat, and Angela's cat is absolutely stunning. And
I
we
want
don't
to
know the
know.
name of the cat, but
I want to know what it is. It's beautiful.
that is a rare breed. That's best in show if ever I've seen it.
Oh.
And there is the cat attacking its prey.
It really does look like a lion.
It's
Really?
natural habitat.
You are so lucky. By the way, there's one thing that all of these cats and dogs have in common. They look like they're in control and in charge of their own home. And clearly the owners are the slaves. That's how it should be. How about this? This is Honey, courtesy of Jenny. Thanks, Jenny.
I'm getting in no matter.
Now, Honey looks like a bit of pug going on there, would you say?
It looks like a... Yeah.
Oh, no! An unsuccessful launch.
Oh, no.
Oh, Honey, let's have another go. Come on. Let's see if we can do it this
Out
time.
the window. It's a very well-trained dog.
Yeah, she's
Definitely.
on
Well,
fifth
you know what?
floor.
She's brave, isn't she? She's got chutzpah.
Oh, no.
But down she goes. I hope she's
Hit
all
the
right.
radiator on the way
Jenny,
down.
thank you for sending that one in. We loved all of your pets. Let's have one more. Come on, let's have one more go. Ross wants another go at this.
Cheers, she's doing a business out the window. That's
Mid-air.
Oh, she
There you go.
is.
Do you know what that looks like? That looks like Emmanuel Macron's attempt to wind up Britain. That's what's going to happen. He'll wind up on his feet.
Instead of a
on his
fist bump,
derriere.
he should have smashed his face.
He'll wind up on all paws. Right, I've run out of puns. It's time now for a fabulous news section on the show, the Great British Game Show, where we create a fun game based around a story of the day. I want to thank Cal, Connor, and my other fantastic colleague Cameron for putting this one together. Now, Paul McCartney has been talking about his forthcoming book, The Lyrics. We're going to speak to Beatles biographer Leslie Ann Jones. She's written books about McCartney and Lennon. She's joining us on Monday night with Beatles superfan Mike Parry in order to celebrate the release of the book, The Lyrics. McCartney told Metro that this will be as close to an autobiography as he's ever going to get. The Lyrics is due to be released next Tuesday and is expected to chart the details around the 154 songs that he's written. Quite remarkable. With support making the headlines, it got us to thinking about lyrics and the wonderful wordsmiths who have contributed to the annals of musical history over the years. So in honour of all the lyricists, let's play Lost for Words. That's right, this game is called Lost for Words, and the panel are going to join in. Laura, Dom and Steph. So how about this lyric? So
Lost for words.
Well, exactly. I mean, this show's not just thrown together, you know. OK, please tell me the band and the song. I don't know how, but I suddenly lose control. There's a fire within my soul, and I can hear a bell ring. One more look, and I forget everything. Whoa!
Not a clue.
I have.
I'm just enjoying your rendition.
Mm.
That's fantastic.
Trying very
Well, you
hard
know
not to
which
sing
country.
it.
You know whose example we should have taken when it came to COVID measures. Who do you think?
Oh, it's ABBA, isn't it?
Well done. Look at you.
Very
Straight in there. I don't know how, but I suddenly lose control. There's a fire within my soul. Just one look and I forget everything. What's the tune?
Mamma Mia, Mamma Mia.
Well done. I'm going to share the points between Steph and Laura there. Well done. And you get half a point for ABBA.
I was
Well
riding
done.
on your coat.
How about this one?
Oh, well done, jolly good.
She says we've got to hold on to what we've got. It doesn't make a difference if we make it or not. We've got each other, and that's a lot for love. We'll give it a shot.
And that's a lot for love. That's the one, isn't
An
it?
American supergroup. It's not American. Are you calling it?
Not Meatloaf, is it?
No, you're warm though. It's American classic rock.
Well,
apparently this guy, bit of a housewife's favourite. She says we've got to hold on to
Bruce
what
Springsteen.
we've got.
Springsteen.
No,
Good,
no.
you're warm. You're warm. She says
Brian,
we've got to hold on to what we've got. It doesn't make a difference if we make it or not. We've got each other, and that's for love.
Jump, that's it.
Oh, we're living on a prayer. Oh,
Bon Jovi.
on a prayer.
Bon Jovi.
Bon Jovi and...
I think he was Irish, is he?
Yeah, well, he was when we sung it. That's right, Living on a Prayer, Bon Jovi. I think I'm going to share that. Point for Laura.
Laura got that.
I've got this thing of coming in right at the end when you've all done the work,
bit
naming
unfair.
the band.
Very well done.
You're not stupid.
Just like a politician.
Oasis. Oh dear, I'm just on Oasis. Because maybe you're going to be the one that saves me. That was Oasis. Luckily, we're running out of time anyway. How embarrassing. Elvis. Oh my God! Okay, let me explain something. Have you ever watched the film Anchorman?
Go wrong.
Yeah, it is a bit. Film Anchorman contains a running theme that Ron Burgundy will just read out anything that's in front of him. Well, I've realised that I am the real-life Ron Burgundy. OK, I'm not going to give the answer away this time. So kiss me and smile for me. Tell me that you'll wait for me. Hold me like you'll never let me go.
I don't know. On a jet plane.
Well done.
No, when I'll be back again.
Well done.
Oh, it makes
Quality.
Who's that?
And the name of the artist?
No idea. Somebody American.
It is... Any idea? You're very good, lastminute.com.
I don't know.
John
John
Denver.
Oh.
John Denver.
Well done.
So how about this one, last but not least? And I'm not allowed to read the band's name out. Oh, won't you take me home tonight? Oh, down beside your red firelight. Oh, and you give it all you got.
Dirty bastard.
Won't you take me home tonight? Down beside that red fire line.
I don't know
We
this
gotta
one
let it
either.
all
I'm
hang
so
on.
bad.
That's
at
Queen,
this
Fat
game.
Bottom Girls.
No.
Well done.
Is it?
Yeah.
Fantastic. And that wasn't easy. So well done. Fantastic.
Aw.
Fantastic.
Well
All right,
done,
well,
Tom.
I think the scoring is, it appears to be a scoring draw. Brilliant stuff. Thank you so much to my amazing panel, Steph and Dom and Laura. I implore you all to return soon.
Please.
Love to have you back.
Thank you.
Lovely.
And our
Thank you
viewers
very much.
enjoyed it. I've enjoyed having you. It's been a privilege to be in the capacious boots of Dan Wootton during the course of the week. Tomorrow night is Halloween, and Patrick Christie's is looking after the show from 9 o'clock. And I'm doing one more week in for Dan. So next week I'm doing Monday to Friday, and Dan returns a week on Monday with a souped-up Tonight Live. And you wait, because he is back and he is firing. So there you go, lots to come, and my thanks to the team for working very, very hard indeed. And Connor broke his duck as the boss tonight. He smashed it, as he always does. So thanks very much, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday night. We've already got some big bookings, including Neil Hamilton, the leader of UKIP. See you Monday at 9.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for the political correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is the political correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
Hi, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
And we're hosting a show right here on GB News, 9:30am till 12pm, every single weekday. Call to the point.
We're going to be talking about all the big issues that matter to you at home in Britain.
Absolutely, whether it's holding politicians to account, discussing what's taking place in the Channel, banging on about law and order, we're not afraid to do the absolute lot of it.
Yes, and if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we'll be saying it.
Make sure you're here 9:30am till 12pm, every single weekday, right here on GB News, for To the Point.
Hello everyone, thanks for joining us. Here's what's coming up on Neil Oliver Live. They tell us it's a climate emergency as they arrive in Glasgow on their private jets. I'll be asking, is this really going to solve anything, or is COP26 a cop-out? Also, I'll be meeting our Great Britain, Jamie McCansh. 7 years ago, he woke up paralysed from the waist down. What did he do next? He climbed a mountain on his hands and knees. And this is Betty, described as Britain's most broken rescue dog. I'll be meeting the team behind her story and why it took her 601 days to build up the courage to take a treat. That's all to come. But before we get started, here's your latest news headlines.
I'm Karen Roberts. Here are the latest headlines. The Prime Minister will deliver a tough message on climate change at the G20 summit in Rome. Boris Johnson will say that countries causing the most global warming must be held accountable. The summit comes ahead of the COP26 Global Climate Conference in Glasgow, which starts on Monday. He'll urge leaders to follow through on their commitments to cut carbon emissions.
One thing we've got to achieve is to ensure that we keep alive the prospect of restricting the growth in the temperature of our planet to 1.5 degrees by the end of the century. That's what it's all about. If we can do that, then we stop the prospect of so much desertification. We stop the prospect of the huge geopolitical consequences of climate change.
Meanwhile, Boris Johnson has told the European Commission President that French threats over fishing rights are unjustified and incompatible with the post-Brexit trade agreement. France is threatening to block British boats from its ports and tighten checks on vessels if the dispute isn't resolved by Tuesday. The Prime Minister is due to hold a short meeting with the French President Emmanuel Macron tomorrow.